We have the report, the Autopsy of 2026. I read the first page and the mandate. The mandate at the top. The urgency is palpable.
It should be. We're in the ARK dissection zone now, so before we start, you listening to this, you have to drop it right now.
From what?
The uniform, the jersey, I don't care what it is. Woke, conservative, libertarian, whatever fiction you tell yourself. It's just static in this room.
So no politics.
None. Sentimentality is a fatal liability here. We need cold physics.
Okay, so let's establish the premise. The body on the table. This isn't just a bad year for geopolitics. The report is claiming it's the rules-based world order itself.
It is, and it didn't just expire from old age.
It was killed?
Assassinated by the very architect that built it over 80 years. The whole operating system, the trade, the security, the predictability, it's a corpse. And we can't understand the murder if we're asking who's moral or who's right. That's for cable news.
So we use a different lens. A forensic lens.
Exactly. We use the lens of the analyst Jiang Suwayne. It's pure game theory, meaning you forget values, you forget allies, you forget friends. Nations aren't people. They are thermal machines, organisms. They have one drive and one drive only, rational self-interest.
Resource maximization.
Energy, territory, security. That's it. Their survival programming dictates every move, not the speeches they give at the UN.
So the whole structure, the entire rules-based order, it only worked as long as it served the self-interest of the hegemon.
You've got it. It was, at its core, a magnificent protection racket run by the United States. And the second, the cost of maintaining that racket exceeded the benefit.
Specifically, the benefit of the world buying its debts.
Precisely. The moment that equation flipped, the system was programmed for self-destruction.
But wait, isn't that just a return to, classic realpolitik? Why does the report sound so hostile to the shift?
Because it's not rational. The hostility is aimed at the sheer incompetence of the execution. This isn't cold, calculated realpolitik. This is pathology dressed up as strength.
And the central question is, who maximizes utility effectively?
Yes. And the answer is no longer the architect. The instrument of destruction, the senile lion that's forgotten how to hunt, is sitting in the Oval Office. We have to analyze the psychology of the capo.
This is where the report gets unconventional. It says the era of grand strategy, the Kissingers and Brzezinskis playing this multi-generational chess game, that's over.
It's been replaced by a strategic lobotomy. The Oval Office is now run by two toxic archetypes.
The mafia boss and the television producer.
It's pathology, not strategy. Let's start with the Don mentality. For him, the world is just a string of transactions. Alliances are for suckers.
And shared values.
A marketing slogan, a line item on an invoice.
So if you look at something like NATO through that lens,
it's not a civilizational shield, it's a protection racket. And the European allies are just delinquent shopkeepers who are behind on their payments. He doesn't care about history or democracy. He cares about the cash flow. Now,
some might argue that's just demanding fair burden sharing, though.
That's the surface story. But the fatal flaw isn't the price tag. It's the total elimination of predictability.
And predictability is the hegemon's most valuable asset.
It's everything. When the Don is in charge, nobody knows what's coming next. Not allies, not rivals. Putin is a friend one day, the next he's an enemy. Xi is a partner, then he's the devil. There's no framework. It's all just whim.
And that volatility means trust evaporates. An ally won't invest billions in a pipeline if they think a tweet could kill the deal tomorrow.
Exactly. And that forces everyone, even your vassals, to start looking for a new protector, a more reliable one. He's optimizing for today's cash, but he's burning the entire business to the ground.
Which brings us to the other half of this, the television producer syndrome.
The apprentice effect. It's a complete epistemological disconnection from reality.
The report says intelligence briefings just didn't work.
How could they? He only processes reality if it appears on TV. He built an empire on hype. He genuinely believes that if he can get the audience to believe it, it becomes true. He fundamentally confuses the map with the territory.
The map being what's projected on the screen.
And the territory being, physics, economics, $35 trillion of unpayable debt.
So he seeks out these loud, quick, visual victories. Maximum rating.
He doesn't understand the difference between a political rating and true imperial hegemony. Hegemony is quiet. It's structural. A rating is loud, and it's gone tomorrow. And this collision of the Don's greed and the producer's superficiality, it led directly to the first great catastrophe.
The kidnapping of Maduro. The report calls it the single greatest error of 2026. Let's walk through what happened in Caracas.
Operation Freedom. It was pure spectacle. I mean, technically it was flawless. Delta Force, black helicopters, a lightning raid,
They grabbed Maduro, put him in chains.
and fly him straight to New York City to be put on display like a captured barbarian king in a Roman triumph. And this is key. They blew up Hugo Chavez's mausoleum. Pure, calculated humiliation.
The TV audience loved it, maximum rating achieved. But the report says it was an irreversible diplomatic catastrophe. Why?
It's the pedagogy of humiliation. He won the street fight, but he lost the entire neighborhood. Think about how that played out across Latin America. All the internal divisions, left versus right, Mexico versus Colombia, suddenly they just vanish.
Because it wasn't an attack on Maduro. It was an attack on the very idea of Latin American sovereignty.
Exactly. You could feel the visceral disgust across the continent. By parading a sovereign head of state like a common criminal, no matter how corrupt he was, the U.S. spat in the face of every single country south of the border. It validated every anti-Yankee narrative from the last century in a single afternoon.
And the specific reactions.
The OAS, usually a rubber stamp for Washington, issued a condemnation that was basically a declaration of non-cooperation. Mexico accelerated its pivot away from the U.S. Brazil's anti-U.S. movements gained unstoppable credibility. The continent, unified by shame, immediately started looking elsewhere for protection.
To China.
Of course. He
Right.
sacrificed decades of stable hegemony in his own backyard for a viral clip. And that arrogance leads directly to the next, much bigger confrontation, the April trap.
Right. Forget the tariffs, the naval posturing. That's all just noise. It's all preparation for one moment. Trump's state visit to Beijing in April 2026.
And this isn't a negotiation, it's a shakedown. The report calls it the inverse Nixon.
Let's set the stage. 1972, Nixon goes to Beijing to open doors, seduce China into the global system, use them against the Soviets, a diplomatic waltz.
This is the opposite. 2026, Trump goes to Beijing to close traps, to extort a rival. The waltz is over. This is a knife fight in a phone booth.
And the driver, the thing that's forcing his hand, is the U.S. public debt. $35 trillion is mathematically unpayable. He needs a buyer of last resort for treasury bonds, or the whole system implodes.
But China's been preparing for this moment for a decade. They've been hoarding physical gold, building lifeboats like the Belt and Road, specifically to get off the dollar Titanic.
So the U.S. has to resort to what the report calls medieval brutality.
The plan is savage in its simplicity. The loaded gun on the table is total control of the Western Hemisphere, which he just secured by humiliating Maduro.
So the message to Xi Jinping is,
You need resources, copper, lithium, oil, soy, to keep your factories running and your people fed. And you have to buy them at our store, which is now the Americas, our private walled garden.
and the price of admission to our store.
Is that China must re-inject its massive trade surplus directly back into U.S. debt. Buy our treasury bonds or you don't get the raw materials.
It's an attempt at refeudalization. You will be our financial vassal, or your industrial machine starves.
But the gambler, the mafia boss, he forgets. China isn't a vassal. It's a nuclear-armed industrial titan. And they know they're being backed into a corner.
Which brings us to the central metaphor for this entire crisis. The ladder over the abyss.
Imagine two giants, the U.S. and China. They're chained together by decades of economic interdependence. And they're both standing on a long, old, creaking ladder that's suspended over a bottomless chasm.
The ladder is that interdependence. The U.S. needs China's money and manufacturing. China needs U.S. markets and access to those American-controlled resources.
And Trump's gamble, his arrogant calculation, is that he can push Xi Jinping just far enough to make him obey, but not so far that he breaks the ladder.
But what if Xi decides the price of that submission of financial slavery is higher than the price of chaos?
That's the risk. If Beijing decides to let go, to start dumping its trillions in U.S. bonds, the ladder snaps in half.
And both of them fall into the abyss. Mutually assured economic destruction. There's no winner. Gravity doesn't negotiate. That April summit isn't diplomacy. It's a hostage negotiation where everyone has a gun.
And while this is happening, the West is completely distracted by a technological cult, a fantasy. We have to talk about the great fraud of our time, the lie of AI and Project Stargate.
I see it everywhere. It's the new religion. AI is the fourth industrial revolution. It will create infinite growth. Just buy NVIDIA stock and pray. But the report calls it a deliberate illusion.
We have to audit it. We have to audit Project Stargate. And when you do, you don't find the future. You find the biggest accounting fraud in history.
The scale is immense. Hundreds of billions of printed dollars are being poured into building these pharaonic data centers.
The waste is just breathtaking. These server farms consume more electricity than entire countries. They're drying up aquifers just for cooling. It's a mobilization of physical resources on par with a world war.
And for what? The report calls the utility insulting.
Because it is. The bulk of this unbelievable computational power is being used to generate deepfakes on TikTok and help high school kids cheat on their essays. We are building the Library of Alexandria and filling it with graffiti.
So why? Why the hysteria from the tech giants in Washington?
Desperation. Stargate is not a tech strategy. It is a necessary state bubble. The real economy, the one that makes and ships things, is in recession. The only thing keeping the stock market from collapsing is this AI story.
It's the perfect excuse to print trillions and simulate growth.
It keeps the S&P 500 afloat through the Magnificent Seven tech oligarchy. It's the modern Rome building useless grand monuments to project a power it no longer has. It's a Potemkin village made of silicon.
But reality always wins. The digital fantasy is crashing into the hard wall of the periodic table. This is the revenge of matter. We need to stop looking at chatbots and start looking at element 47.
Silver, egg. The West treated it like jewelry, a minor industrial metal, a fatal, fatal mistake.
Because it's the single best conductor of electricity and heat known to man. Without it, the entire 21st century military and tech machine just stops.
Missile guidance, data centers, solar panels, stealth coatings, advanced chips. You can't print silver.
And this leads us to the crime. The paper casino on the COMEX.
A system designed with one purpose: to use paper derivatives to artificially suppress the price of the physical metal.
The leverage is insane, 300 to 1.
For every single physical ounce of silver in a vault, there are 300 paper contracts promising to deliver that same ounce. It's the most dangerous game of musical chairs ever conceived.
And that artificially low price was a subsidy for the entire Western military-industrial complex.
A massive subsidy. But it left them completely exposed. Because Beijing saw the bluff, they realized the war will be won with atoms, not derivatives.
So China is burning the deck.
They're hoarding the physical metal, brutally restricting exports, forcing their own industries to use it. They're creating a strategic stockpile.
And the consequence is a total decoupling. The paper price on the screen becomes a fantasy. In the real world, if you're a defense contractor, you can't get the physical metal. And if you can, you're paying a premium of 1, maybe 200%.
The paper contract holders are starting to demand delivery, and the vaults are empty. This is the great geopolitical short squeeze. And it's why U.S. destroyers are suddenly so interested in the coastlines of Mexico and Peru.
They need the physical silver veins to keep the machine running. The financial game is over. The war for matter has begun.
And while the U.S. is scrambling for resources, its oldest alliance is committing suicide. We have to cross the Atlantic. It's time for the autopsy of Europe.
The report calls it a continental palliative care ward. Europe is a stranded asset, a heavy bureaucratic structure that its owner, the U.S., is getting ready to abandon.
And the leadership in Brussels is in a state of psychosis, a sunk cost fallacy. They bet everything on a quick sanctions victory over Russia. They lost spectacularly.
And instead of admitting the mistake, they're doubling down, dragging their own populations into deindustrialization and energy poverty.
The German industrial base, the engine of the whole continent, is being dismantled. Factories are fleeing. But the real cancer, the terminal diagnosis, it's sociological.
Karl Popper's revenge.
For 70 years, Europe systematically deconstructed the very things you need to fight a war. Nationalism, identity, borders, military pride, they were all dismissed as relics of fascism, and now history is presenting the bill.
Which leads to the one question that terrifies every leader from Paris to Berlin. Who is going to hold the rifle?
Let's be cold about this. Who are the potential soldiers? First, the immigrant populations in the suburbs. Will they die for a flag they often despise, for a state they feel alienated from? No. Their loyalty is elsewhere.
And the native population.
The native working class that's been impoverished by green agendas and taught by their own elites to be ashamed of their history. Will they fight for a patria they've been told to hate?
The social contract is broken.
Completely. You cannot ask a consumer to die for a barcode.
And this leads to the final grim prediction. The tomb of Odessa. NATO doesn't die with a bang. It dies with a bureaucratic whimper on the Black Sea.
The breaking point is Odessa. When the Ukrainian front finally collapses from exhaustion and the Russians surround that city, the proxy war is over. It's put up or shut up time for NATO.
The only option left is to send European boots on the ground. Forced conscription.
And on that day, the order will be given and no one will obey. The the populations will refuse. The riots won't be against Moscow, they'll be against the recruiters in their own capitals.
And in that moment of silent refusal,
The veil drops. NATO is revealed as a naked emperor. A zombie bureaucracy with PowerPoints but no soldiers. Odessa will be the anthropological tomb of modern Europe. And as Europe dies, the U.S., desperate for cash, turns its wars into a private enterprise. This is the era of the privatized wars.
starting with Iran. The coming war, late 26, early 27, it's not about oil or democracy. It's pure debt amortization.
You have to look at the campaign finance reports. Trump is a mafia boss. He takes cash, he provides favors. U.S. foreign policy is now literally for sale.
And the report names the buyers. Miriam Adelson, a $100 million investment.
That wasn't a donation. It was a purchase order. It bought the green light for the final solution to the Iran problem.
He has to deliver a return on that investment to his donors.
The decision for war isn't made in the Situation Room. It's made at Mar-a-Lago to settle a $100 million IOU.
And the tragedy is the ground trap. Israel can bomb, but they can't occupy a country of 90 million.
So to deliver the product Adelson paid for, Trump has to authorize a U.S. ground invasion, the Vietnam of the desert. He's sending American kids into a meat grinder not to defend the country, but to settle a campaign debt. It's the privatization of the apocalypse.
At the same time, the U.S. is fortifying its walled garden here in the Americas. The Monroe Doctrine on steroids.
The talk about fentanyl and border security is just theater for the TV audience. The reality is a hemispheric conquest campaign.
And the flashpoint is Mexico. The key move was designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations.
That's not a legal distinction, it's a strategic one. It moves the problem from the DEA to the Pentagon, from law enforcement to war.
So the prediction is unilateral U.S. military action inside Mexico.
Reaper drone strikes, Navy SEAL incursions, all without asking Mexico City for permission. The goal isn't just stopping drugs, it's territorial control. To prevent a China-friendly state on the border, the message is brutal. If you can't control your territory, we will.
And this extends south to Colombia and the Caribbean.
The Fourth Fleet is on high alert. Colombia tried to play neutral, and for Washington, neutrality is now insubordination. Expect massive destabilization sanctions, lawfare surgical strikes. The Caribbean is becoming an American lake, Americlasm.
The mask is off. And the same logic applies to the last frontier, Africa in flames.
The era of Live Aid is over. It's AFRICOM now. The U.S. was late to the commercial game in Africa. China spent 20 years building infrastructure.
And when an empire can't compete commercially,
It uses kinetic force. The policy is no longer development, it's the sabotage strategy.
the goal is to make these resource-rich regions ungovernable for China. Look at the Sahel, Niger, Mali, the Congo.
The U.S. is covertly backing insurgents and warlords. The new doctrine is simple. If we can't have the Congo's cobalt, we will make sure the region burns so violently that China can't get it either. It's scorched earth policy.
And it's all being done by private military companies. No flags, no accountability. It's a return to the East India Company model, but with drones.
The continent will burn, just to keep its resources out of the hands of the Chinese industrial machine.
All of these fires, all of these kinetic wars, they're all symptoms of one single collapsing core, the fiat dollar system. This brings us to the financial endgame, the golden guillotine.
We have to go back to 1971. Nixon closing the gold window. That was the original sin. Money stopped being an asset and became debt. A promise.
And it created the exorbitant privilege. The U.S. could print paper to buy the world's real stuff.
That cycle has now reached mathematical collapse, and China has been building the weapon to end it, the Shanghai Gold Exchange.
This is the dollar's death corridor.
The mechanism is terrifyingly simple. China goes to Russia, to Saudi Arabia, and says, we'll buy your oil in yuan. And if you don't trust our paper, you can immediately convert that yuan into physical gold at the SGE and take the bars home.
It completely bypasses the dollar. It converts a real asset, oil, directly into another real asset, gold. The debt instrument is removed from the equation.
It's a de facto return to honest money. And the yuan is only credible because it's a bridge to gold.
The consequence for the U.S. is catastrophic. If the world starts trading resources for gold, demand for the dollar evaporates.
And all those trillions of dollars sloshing around the globe come flooding home. It's a tsunami of hyperbolic inflation that will wipe out the American middle class.
It's a clash of philosophies. Western Lafayette versus Eastern assets. And the SGE is the guillotine hanging over the dollar's neck.
And that external financial collapse triggers the final act, the fire at home.
We come back to Michael Burry, the man who saw 2008 coming. He didn't just bet against the AI bubble. He abandoned the market altogether.
He saw that fundamentals are dead. The U.S. economy is a centralized oligopoly. It's a Ponzi scheme propped up by the Magnificent Seven and the money printer. Take them away, and the economy has been in a depression for years.
And this leads to the zero society.
The social contract was always material. Tolerate our corruption, and we'll give you cheap stuff from China.
That pact is broken. Inflation has destroyed it. The system is revealed for what it is, an extraction machine for the elite.
And when money dies, civility dies with it. Instantly.
The final prediction. A civil war. But not North versus South.
No. A chaotic, balkanized fracture, blue versus red. Two groups living in two completely separate realities, sharing the same space.
The trigger is inescapable. If the system collapses under Trump, the blue half rebels.
And if the system purges Trump, the red half sees it as a declaration of war. Either way, the center cannot hold.
The empire won't be conquered. It will be devoured from within, just like Rome. 2026 is the year the war comes home.
Which brings us to the only possible conclusion, the final part of the report, the Gray Zone Manifesto.
Is there any way to fix this? To change course?
No. The conclusion is absolute. The system cannot be fixed. This is a multi-organ failure.
Yeah.
Money, security, social cohesion, truth, they've all died at the same time.
Changing the captain of the Titanic doesn't help.
This is the great purge, a purge of illusions, unpayable pensions, gone. The belief that your house is a magic ATM, gone. Faith in institutions, gone. We're in Gramsci's interregnum. The old world is dying, the new one is struggling to be born, and in the twilight, the monsters emerge.
So the report doesn't offer hope. It offers lucidity.
When the elephants fight, you must stop being the grass. When the library is burning, you don't try to put it out. You save the books and run.
This is a call for radical individual sovereignty.
Financial sovereignty first. Get out of the banking system. Own assets with no counterparty risk. Gold, silver, land, cold Bitcoin. The rule is simple. If you cannot touch it, it is not yours.
And mental sovereignty.
Turn off the screen. Stop consuming the propaganda designed to recruit you emotionally into their wars. Your duty is not to save their dying system. It is to survive its collapse so you can build what comes next.
While they scream in the theater, we work silently in the garage. Build your own plane. Be a node.
Welcome to the desert of the real.